Stuka Joe here, and welcome everybody. It's Monday, the 18th of December, and I was clicking on your comments, but for some reason they won't show on the video, on the intro clip. So still working on it. But we have some people here. I was waiting for Ardwolf to have his wonderful show over so I can steal some people from him. And it's nice to see some of you here. So we have Eric. Welcome, Eric. I have myself there. That doesn't count. Michael Mellon. Did I say the 14th somewhere? I thought I put the 18th. And we have the one and only Ben Dover. And Michael comes straight from Annapolis, Maryland. Meandering Mike, teleporting from Ardwolf's lair. Welcome. And we have from the Philippines, our man in Manila, John C. Welcome, John. David Sandberg, welcome also. And we also have, let me see, we have Meandering Mike, Peter Bergs, hello. So, and I know Mo is somewhere around here. I think I skipped Mo for some reason. No, there he is. There's Mo from Mo's Gaming Table. Welcome, Mo. And we also have Dale Tingley. What's up? Well, today, you know that I never recommend games because, you know, I never do real reviews like, I play a game and I say if it's good or bad because everybody has their taste. But this is one that's close to my heart because I've seen it being developed since 2019. So let's put this on the screen now. And this one is The Other Side of the Hill. So this is a game that's coming up by NAC Wargames, a Spanish publisher. I think it's before 2019. I saw it in 2019 at the Bellota Con. And it was a game I fell in love with because of the topic, multiplayer, backstabbing, all that kind of stuff. And so this is a game that has a Kickstarter. It actually has surpassed expectations. They were expecting a minimum, I think, of around 32,000 euros. And they're right now at 75,000, making all the stretch goals. And yes, this is the other side of the hill. Not for us. Well, I'm on the other side of a hill, but not that hill. And the thing is, this game has so much to it that I'm making sequence of play cards, but I haven't said that out loud because I don't want that to affect the Kickstarter. These are sequence of play cards that I'll be putting up in BGG because the turn has like 30-something phases, and I'll be doing after the Kickstarter campaign ends, and it ends on January the 20th. On December the 20th. I'll be probably doing a video before I go to the Bellota Con about the game, the solitaire mode, using the sequence of play cards so you can see how the solitaire mode works. And I'll be taking a turn like in 1943, which is where things are kind of heated for the Germans. The video that I made has an example of play in 1939 that not a lot happened. But today we'll be taking a look at the generals that come with The Other Side of the Hill, because one way that you score prestige points is by placing your generals in army group commands or front commands and trying to see if they can survive there and be successful. Because whenever they are successful, they earn prestige points. And when they're defeated, then they become questioned, and many of them don't have a high favor with the Führer, so they're going to be being relieved very soon. Some other generals die, some others are arrested, some become dissidents. So a lot of things happen with these generals. So we'll be taking a look at The Other Side of the Hill. This is a game about the German High Command in World War II. It's a multiplayer game. It's intended for 4 players. And you can play the war from beginning to end. There's a bunch of scenarios that you can play from 39 to 41. You can play from 43 to 45. And of course, the more years, the longer the scenario is. But there's also a solitaire mode and also a cooperative mode. But the game it shines as a multiplayer because you're handling a particular faction within the German High Command, and that faction can change every year. You can be the OKW chief, and you have certain responsibilities and powers. But then you can be the production chief for a year, or the personnel chief, or you can even be the, what's the other one? The operations chief. And you're going to see that each of these chiefs has different powers. And so you never know what position you're going to occupy every year. And then in 1942, with the reorganization of the German High Command, then what happens is that whoever's the OKW chief stays OKW chief. That represents Hitler's firm grasp and control over the German High Command after it failed to defeat the Russians in 1941. We have William from Kitchener, Ontario. You joined the Kickstarter, so congratulations. And the Kickstarter, one of the good things about this Kickstarter is that the price of the game is going to be 100 euros when it's published, and or 90 euros there, and the Kickstarter price is 60 euros, whatever that translates into dollars. So it's substantial, and you get the Twilight Generals expansion. These are generals at the end of the war that could have been selected for Army Group Command. We're going to see a bunch of generals here today. So what Kickstarter search is acting very strangely. Well, it's the other side of the hill, and it's working fine with me at the times that I've searched for it. It's kind of like an RPG because you have roles and you score points in those specific roles for certain things. The production chief, you can also construct wonder weapons or improve the tanks and the aircraft. And if you achieve those, you also get prestige points. So there's a certain role play element in the game, but you're all different parts of the German High Command. And at the same time, I forgot to say that in 1942, with the reorganization of the German High Command, each player gets an agenda card. And the agendas are, one player can be a sympathizer. And that is, generals that you score points doing things that, in accordance with the regime. Others, the old school generals. The others are the professionals, and then you have the dissidents. And then I know there are 5, and now I can't remember the 5th one. And those points are secret. You score them at the end of the game, so you really never know who's winning. So that keeps everybody engaged. Okay. So John, you haven't jumped on it yet. Okay, so let's see if I make you buy the game or not. Okay. So Mike, you found it. Let's go to the generals, and what I'll be doing is I'll be guiding myself using this book, which you probably have heard about. This is a West Point Atlas. The original edition is of American Wars, and I have the old one, but it's hard to flip. This one has World War II on the European theater. And what we will be doing is we will be going through the book, and the book has a few pages with a few maps, and then you'll see the generals showing up on the map. On the map on the book, we will show also the board at times, and we'll show the general cards. So we have with us the general cards. Let's take a look first at this map. So this is a situation at the beginning of the war, and you see Germany as it ended after World War I, divided East Prussia and Germany, and then you have the German gains before the war started. You have the Rhineland, you have Austria, then you have the Sudetenland, and later Germany gobbled up Czechoslovakia. And that's how things stand at the beginning of the war. So let's flip this back and let's take a look at the first page, and then we'll start looking at our generals here. So here we have the attack on Poland, the campaign on Poland, and that is represented in the game. The game also has what we call these operation cards. And the operation card that pertains to Poland is this one, Fall Weiss. And you see the objectives, Warsaw there, and then there's prestige points that are gained for the OKW player, and it's 1 prestige point if it's successful, and also for the operations chief, and also you see that this sign here is for the player. The fanaticism increases by 1. Fanaticism is good for the faction, which is the OKW, is also good for them. But this is the map, and let's take a look at our first general. And you probably know this general. Let me see why it's not showing up here. Just a second. Okay. Should show up here. Okay. I gotta hit this. Okay. Just a second. We put this here side by side. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, for some reason now, let's see. We got von Rundstedt there, and let me get here my first. Okay, now he's going to show up. There he is. Okay, so we got Gerhard von Rundstedt. So now you're going to see his card larger here. So let's go through the ratings of these generals so that everything else has more sense here. So these generals, obviously, you see the name of the general here, Gerhard von Rundstedt, and this is the year when the general becomes available. 1939, so he's going to be in the Polish campaign. And then this is one of the most important ratings. This is the, what you call the seniority. The higher the seniority, the better the chance the general has of getting a vacant position. Now, at the beginning of the game starts with the invasion of Poland. Gerhard von Rundstedt is already on the map. And this is the rating, which is the confidence rating, the confidence that Hitler has on von Rundstedt. And curiously, he has the lowest confidence in the game also. So Hitler doesn't like him too much. So let's take a look at the other ratings quickly so that, okay, so we have those ratings there. You see the scenario here. These are the scenarios where von Rundstedt appears. And he always, there's 4 players in the game. They're color-coded. One is red, one is brown, one is purple, and one is blue. So he's always with the red player. Scenario 0 is 1939. Scenario 1 starts in 1941. Scenario 2 in 1942. And scenario 3 starts in 1943. So he's in all the scenarios in the game. So let's continue taking a look at his card here. And here you see his combat effect. And the combat effect has to do with dice in many circumstances, or sometimes they add hits to the dice rolls. And in his particular case, you see here that he affects combat against the Western Allies and also the Russians, and he affects combat in attacks here, and those are attacks in clear terrain, in plains, and most of the spaces are clear terrain. And his effect is that you add 1 more hit to the Axis combat rolls. Combat is pretty simple here. The side that gets more hits wins the combat, and the difference between the hits is what determines the degree of the victory or of the defeat. And the Axis win a pretty significant victory, they have a better chance of advancing another space. Now, if they are defeated, the general who is in command of the army group is going to be questioned, and von Rundstedt then will have to roll on his confidence to see if he stays in position. Now, historically, he stayed in position until, I think, 1942, when he was sacked. But then comes the other rating that you see here, and this is the rating that some generals have, the special ability. In his case, he is respected, and that means that he when dismissed, you add the card to the general's card entering play for the next year. So he's not permanently eliminated when he is dismissed, but he gets to come in again. And that's what happened historically. He entered the war again in command of O.B. West. And he was the commander of the front when D-Day happened. So taking a look now here at the map, we see that von Rundstedt actually commanded Army Group South in the invasion of Poland, which you see there. So he was a commander of Army Group South, and you're going to see other generals there that are going to appear here, like Reichenau, Blaskowitz. And then the other Army Group commander is von Bock. So let's take a look at von Bock's card. And let's take a look at his card. So let's zoom out. And von Rundstedt, we'll leave von Rundstedt for now. We have von Bock there. And you can see that von Bock has a seniority of 9. So von Bock has be a pretty good seniority, 9, but his confidence rating is 3. And so he has a fairly good chance of being sacked if he's questioned. And what you do when a general is questioned is that you roll a 6-sided die, and then if the confidence, if the die is higher than the confidence rating, for example, a 5, he's dismissed. If it's the same as the confidence rating, he becomes a dissident. And then a dissident, he's not removed yet, but if he's questioned again and he rolls again his confidence rating, he's out. So a dissident is practically on his way out. So we have Bock there, and Bock is, as you can see there, he has an effect there that he cancels an aircraft result. Those aircraft results that you see there affect the strength of the Luftwaffe in a particular front. So if in a battle, the Allies roll, for example, that an aircraft result, or the Russians, if the Axis are attacking on the Western Front or on the Soviet front, as indicated by the icon here, the Stuka, and it can be in any space here, he has that effect. So that's a pretty good effect that he has here. And then he has a prima donna special ability. After a victory in combat where the Axis is the attacker, it is mandatory to advance again if the terrain allows it. So he cannot choose. Sometimes you can choose not to advance again, especially if you took a loss when you won the first combat. And sometimes you don't want to take that chance. He's a prima donna. He's going to advance again. So you have von Bock, and you see this rating here. This is the agenda to which he belongs to. He's of the old school. And old school generals, if you have that secret agenda, you want to occupy a lot of space on the Eastern Front. Hold on in the Eastern Front. And hold on to Festung spaces in the other fronts. That's how mostly they score points. So you have a different agenda for each type, different objectives for each type of agendas. So let's take a look at our next commander. And John, you can't find it in Kickstarter. It's type the other side of the hill. It should come up. I found it. So, okay. So the next one is Ritter von Lieb, and I don't think he is in the Polish campaign. If we take a look at our map here, I think he shows up in France. So France would be further ahead. We have the okay. So here we have the French campaign, and Ritter von Lieb commands Army Group C. So there he's facing basically the Maginot Line against the French. And you see there again, Rundstedt, Army Group A, and Bock, Army Group B. And you have these other commanders. You will see them pop up. They're all in this game. Vikes, you have List, Bush, Kuga, they're all in the game because this game is not as scripted. The only scripted part of this game is that Germany is going to lose World War II. But you don't know, you're trying to delay. If you're playing solitaire, the objective is to delay the defeat as much as you can. Now, if you're playing competitive and you're the dissident, you want to end the war quickly if it's advantageous to you so that you score more points. So you're going to be the traitor. But the game has a mechanism, a traitor counter, that if another player accuses you of being the traitor and he guesses correctly, you lose 10 prestige points as the dissident. But if the player who places that marker on you guessed incorrectly, he loses 5. So that's the risk by accusing you of being the traitor or the player with the dissident agenda. So that is Ritter von Lieb. He has a special ability here. You draw 2 combat cards and you choose one whenever attacking again in any front. And that makes sense because he saw action in the Western Front in 1940 and also in the Eastern Front. And we see here his special ability, reputation. When dismissed or removed from play, you add 10 prestige points to the player that has the old guard agenda. Okay, so that's Ritter von Lieb. So let's go to our next general here. And this is Walter von Reichenau. Now, this was a commander of the 6th Army originally during the Barbarossa campaign, and he died during the war and was substituted by von Paulus. And you can see here, he has a pretty high seniority, 8, and he is loved by the Fuhrer. He has the highest rating as to confidence of the Fuhrer, 6. And of course, as you can see here, he is of the sympathizer faction. So he's an ardent Nazi here. He only appears in scenarios in 1939, 1941. He has this ability here that the controlling player can re-roll any allied combat die roll when in any situation where the Axis is attacking. You're going to see there's going to be some defensive. Some generals are really good only on defense. These have special abilities on attack. And then he has this special ability here. Hitler's favorite. In the new year, you add 1 prestige point to the controlling player. So whoever has him, even if he's not doing anything, even if he's in the display of available generals in the pool, hasn't been assigned an army or it hasn't commanded a battle, you get a prestige point. And then, but look at this, you have here the skull and bones symbol. That is what's the name of that thing? I forgot the word. There's a word which is the. Let me see. It's bad events for these generals. Some of them have that. That's called the. I'll remember it. And this one from 1941 onwards, if an event card draws this symbol, the skull symbol, and he is on the map commanding an army group, then he dies of a heart attack. And historically, that's what happened. He died in 1942, I believe, early on, and then von Paulus took over. So that is Reichenau. And we have, obviously, we've shown that we have Reichenau here. He was commanding, actually. Where is he? He was in the, I think he was in the Polish campaign here. I don't see him here in the French campaign. We saw Reichenau commanding an army in the Polish campaign. I think we saw him here. Let's quickly take a look. So in the Polish campaign, he is there, commanding the 10th Army. So you see Reichenau's army there. So that is Walter von Reichenau. And the next one, Skull and Bones, yes. It gives you a black orchestra vibe. Part of the game has, I don't have the cards next to me, but what we call the black orchestra cards. The more dissidents that as generals become dissidents, fanaticism will decrease and then players will get black orchestra cards. And there is a coup event where players then play their black orchestra cards, and there may be a coup. Hitler can be killed, and the game may end right there. And if you are the player with the how do you say it, the agenda, which is the what's the name of the agenda there? The I forgot the name of the agenda. Shit. The player that has the opposition to the regime. There's one of the agendas is you become a dissident, actually. Then the game may end there. You score points the sooner the game ends. So that's the effect on that. So we have here Gunther von Kluge. Actually, von Kluge has the misfortune event. That's what is called the Skulls and Bones is the misfortune. He committed suicide in 1944 after it was discovered that he was involved in the July plot to kill Hitler. So he starts, you see him in all these scenarios here. So he's going to be available in all the scenarios. Most of them with the brown player has a seniority of 7, and he has a pretty high rating for a professional agenda general of 4. So that's a pretty fair shot of surviving one of these confidence checks. And you see here, he cancels a special effect. That is a special effect in a combat card. So he has that ability in the Russian front. So that only happens in the Russian front if he's defending in any space. He's more like a defensive general. And that's von Kluge. Let's take a look at our next general here. And we have von Kuchler. He also appears in the Polish campaign. Actually, I think he took, his armies took Warsaw. You can see here his Third Army practically assaulting Warsaw there. So we have von Kuchler has a confidence, seniority of 7, confidence of 4. He's also a sympathizer there. He also known for defensive ability on the Eastern Front. He cancels a special effect in a combat card. And von Kuchler in 1941 in Barbarossa, he was commanding, I think, the 18th Army. And yes, he was, I think he commanded one of those northern armies. So that's von Kuchler. And let's see, who's the next one we have? Vhem List. Vhem List, he belongs to the Old Guard. Seniority of 7, which is pretty decent. I mean, seniority, you're going to have situations, you're going to have generals that positions become vacant. And when I talk about positions vacant, these are positions, for example, here in this situation here. For example, let's suppose that there's a vacant position here in the Black Sea, and you're going to have a vacant marker, and then the players can nominate their generals, and the general with the highest seniority will gain that position. So seniority is important in that sense, and 7 is decent. I mean, the highest is 10 with Rundstedt. And we see he has his combat effect here that pertains only in attacks against spaces, rough terrain spaces. So what is a rough terrain space that you probably are familiar with? We see, for example, here you have Prague, and this is what they call a Festung space. This determines the fall of Germany. If the more Festung spaces under control of the Axis and the Soviets, you roll a die, and if the die result is higher than a specific number, or higher than a specific number, I think, then it falls. So there's a relationship between the amount of Festung spaces and the collapse of Germany. Now you have Debrecen in Hungary. That's another rough terrain space. So you see that he has that ability in rough terrain. Let's go to the next general. Let's move a little bit quicker here. Maximilan von Vikes. He has a seniority of 7, confidence of 3 of the old school guard. And he has a specific effect here, special effect, partisan repression in Yugoslavia. When dismissed or removed from play, you add 1 to the unrest value. And that unrest value is the unrest, not in Yugoslavia, it's the unrest of the German High Command. You see, the game has this fanaticism track, and whenever unrest climbs to 3, fanaticism will go down. Fanaticism is important for the OKW player. He wants to keep this as high as possible. And of course, if you're the dissident player, then you want to keep this as low as possible. So there's going to be conflicting goals, objectives there. So you have Maximilan Von Vikes, and we have here Adolf Strauss. And I couldn't find that guy on the map. Maybe he's somewhere around, but I couldn't find him in the map. Adolf Strauss, he has a seniority of 7, confidence of 3. Yes, John, you're right. He commanded Army Group North, and I believe that was List in 1942. After von Lieb was sacked. Let me see. Or no, List actually I think was in the south. I have him here. List commanded here when Hitler divided Army Group South into A and B. He had Vikes, who's the general that we just saw. Maximilian Vikes gave him command of B, and List was given command of Army Group A. Maybe he was in the north also, but we have him here in the south. And Strauss is the one, I haven't found a listing in the map for an army group. So, but Strauss has the poor health, misfortune in 1941. So if that symbol comes up during a resolution of an event, and events come up when you're resolving a battle and you roll this symbol, you draw, you're not seeing it there. Let me show you this. Events come up when you're rolling dice. So let's take a look at the dice here. The dice are color-coded. You're going to have different types of armies in the game. And depending on the colors of certain of the armies, the axes have better armies than others. For example, the best quality armies are the Panzer armies. And they're represented by black cubes, but they roll these dice. The cross is a hit. The tank is 2 hits. So you see this one has a really good chance. This one's going to score 1 or 2 hits all the time. But when if a Panzer army takes a hit, it is degraded to a regular army. And then you roll the gray die. Now the gray die has an event. And when you roll an event, you resolve the event before you resolve the effects of the combat. So the event can be good for you, or it can screw your side also. So you have here the artillery has, I think, an effect. I think it's also a hit, but has some other effect I don't remember. The tank is 2 hits. And then if a regular army takes a hit, then it's degraded to a reduced army. And the reduced army starts to have blank sides here. And you can see it has the cross for 1 hit. You have the gun there. And then it has an event result. And then you have the Axis satellite armies. Those are the Italians, the Romanians, all the satellites. They have, I think, only have 2 crosses, 3 blank sides, and an event side. And then the Allies, the Western Allies, roll this die. And the star is a hit, tank 2 hits. But with the Western Allies in 1940, I think the tank just scores 1 hit. There's some modifications. Then you have the event card result, and then you have the Soviets, which throughout the years they improve. You have the stars, they have the tanks. So I think the tank during the first year it's just 1 hit, if at all. Then you have the event card. So those are the dice that you roll depending on the army and the effect of the general. The generals have sometimes effects there. So we see there that Strauss, decent seniority, and he has a mid-range there in confidence. So the next general that we have is Ernest Bush, and he was in the campaign in France. He was commanding an army. I'm not sure if he got to command any army groups, but he appears in France. Now look at this. He is a sympathizer, has a high confidence rating there, and his effect is only in the Eastern Front in defense. You roll a gray die, and if the result is a cross, you can cancel a special effect. So those special effects tend to favor the Soviets. So that's his particular ability. So he's more like a defensive general in the game. Next is Erwin von Vitz Leben. And he was an army group commander. I think he was an army group commander in France, I think in 1944. Probably commanded, I think he commanded one of the armies in Poland. And you see here, he is from the dissidents. So he already is a dissident at the start of the game. So he's not going to have a high confidence rating from Hitler, a 2. And you see his effects here are only if the Axis are attacking in the Western Front fortifications. And there's a few of those spaces, not a lot. And he falls from grace. That's his misfortune. 1941, of course, he is one of those generals that were sacked early on, even before the July 44 plot. And I'm not sure, maybe he got executed in July 1944, but he adds 2 points to the dissidents when he falls from grace, when he is dismissed. So go figure, the dissidents earn 2 points when he is dismissed. So we have here Johannes Blaskowitz. He has a seniority of 6, a confidence of 2. And you see his effect here is in defense in an amphibious, against an amphibious attack. And only on the Western Front, he has the special honorable rule where when dismissed or removed from play, you add 2 to the old guard. So he's from the old guard. So if he gets dismissed and you have that secret agenda, so you smile a little bit because you just got 2 prestige points. And what's going to be visible on the board is the track. You're going to see the marker of the old guard on the board, but the thing is, you won't know who the old guard, which player has the old guard until at the end of the game the agenda is revealed. So you'll see those what do you call it, influence or special agenda markers advance, and you'll see the points that they scored. You just don't know who is who until the end of the game. And Bush was Budweiser, yeah. And then the next one we have is Nicolas von Falkenhorst. So if you remember von Falkenhorst, he was the general that commanded the Norway Army Group. Hitler stationed the Germans stationed about 300,000 troops in Norway throughout the war. It's amazing. They had a lot of troops over there. He was their commander. So he has a confidence of 2. He belongs to the professional class. You're going to see other more famous generals there. And then you see here that his, let me see what it says here. His, if I can grab this, okay. Only in Denmark, Norway. So his particular ability there is only in Denmark, Norway. And Denmark, Norway is this area here. So only if he's placed as Army Group head there will then the player gain that combat ability for von Falkenhorst. Okay, so let me put his... Okay, let's go with the next general. And this is Karl Heinrich von Stulpnagel. And this was one of those who was executed after the July 1944 plot, but he starts in 1940. So this general begins in the 1940 year cycle. So these turns, and let's take a look at the turns. You're going to see them here. The turn record track, you have years here. 1939, the game starts in fall 1939 with the administrative phase, and then the operations phase. And then you go to 1940 and you start with the New Year phase. There's a sequence for the New Year phase, and there in that sequence, there's a particular segment where you add generals to the deck of cards. So you're going to add von Nagle there. He has a seniority of 6, which is fair. Oh, he has a confidence of 1. So there was lower than 2. So he has the lowest in the game. And of course, he's one of those in the dissident faction from the start. Okay, so let's take a look at the next general that we have here, and that is Ewald von Kleist. Von Kleist commanded an army, actually the only panzer army in the invasion of France in the West. So I think I have him here. So you can see there, you see the army, we have Kleist, oh, and we have List here. And John, you were talking about List. So he appears here, commanding the 12th Army. And von Kleist is, his panzers went through the Ardennes. You have the other generals here, Guderian, who is going to show up also. And so that's where von Kleist, and of course von Kleist also commanded, I think, a panzer army in the Eastern Front. Not sure if he got to command an army group, but he has a confidence of 6. And he has a seniority of 6, confidence of 3. And we see here his abilities actually in attack, but attacking rough terrain. He adds 1 to the number of hits. That's a pretty good ability because you don't have to roll for it. It's a +1 hit. And then he has also that ability defending in any space also. So that's pretty good, not shabby at all. And we have the next one, Hines Garian, also 1940. He belongs to the professionals. There's the professional agenda. He has a seniority of 6, which is pretty decent. He has a confidence rating of 3. And his ability in combat applies in attack in any space, in any front. And you don't apply the mandatory reduction if the head of the army group decides to advance again after combat. If you advance again, to advance you have to reduce, if you win a battle by a specific margin, then you can advance, but that advance always costs you the reduction of an army, either a panzer army to a regular army, to a reduced army, but with his ability, you don't have to reduce the army. And then he has a special Inspector General of Armored Troops. When dismissed or removed, you add 2 prestige points to the controlling player. So that's Heinz Guderian. And we have now Erich von Manstein. And he has a seniority of 6, which is decent. And he has a pretty high confidence rating for not being a sympathizer. You're going to see some generals that are kind of meh, and they have high confidence ratings because they belong to the sympathizer faction here. So you got von Manstein. He's always, the brown player always has him in all the scenarios. And you see the effect here is only on the Russian front, and it's in attack and defense. And you have 2 effects there. You can change the result of a die of the Axis or the Allies in a combat. So that's pretty good. And if his marker is in the OB Ost, that's the East Front box, the controlling player can re-roll 1 die in the Axis combat roll. And that applies, I guess, to any combat in the Eastern Front. And so let me show you here. The map has front commands. You see that in each of these spaces, for example, here, Poland, you can have 2 army group heads. And actually, Poland and there's one in France are the only 2 spaces that have 2 heads of army groups. The other spaces have 1. See Belarus here, You see Ukraine here. You see here the Baltic states. Now, the eastern front spaces are all in brown, color-coded brown. The western front space is in this gray here. And then it's called the southern front of the game, but it's the Mediterranean. It includes North Africa. It's in yellow. Now, each of these fronts has an air naval control track. And that basically controls where you track the strength of the Luftwaffe there. And then if you have a front commander, and front commanders the front positions are open with an event card, then you can place him here. And von Manstein is one of those that has that specific effect there if placed as a front commander. So very advantageous for the Germans if they place von Manstein there as a front commander in the Eastern Front. Okay, so, and Guderian's Achtung-Panzer, yes, that's his famous book. So let's take a look at the next general that we have here. We have a ton of generals. This is going to be pretty long. Erwin Rommel, everybody's favorite German general, I suppose. Everybody likes Rommel. And 1940, he has a 6 and a 6. So the seniority, notice it's not the highest, he's high mid. So there has to be a vacancy. At the beginning of the game, you have a lot of the old guard generals in place, but then you have to try to get Rommel somewhere. And once he's there, that 6 is pretty high. That's seems that Hitler liked him until he found out that he was involved in the plot. So you have his special ability here, and his special ability, let me see if I can get the, here it says that his special ability in combat only applies in Libya, Egypt, North Africa, and the Middle East. Notice that it doesn't apply in France. I mean, he basically didn't do anything but set up the defenses over there. And so you see there, one German army in the area is considered of the immediately superior type. So if you have a regular army, it's considered a panzer army. That's a pretty cool effect. And if the combat result is not a defeat, the player may move this card back to the available deck. Okay, so that means you can, if it's not a defeat, you can move Rommel to the available deck, and then you can place him in another position in another front, and that would simulate, for example, he's in the Mediterranean. It's not a defeat, the result. You place him in the available space, and then you can assign him to command the army groups in northern France over there. So that's, now, Rommel has a misfortune here, wounded in air attack. Of course, we know he was wounded in an air attack, and then what happened was he was implicated in the July plot, and then he was forced to commit suicide. So he has a misfortune possibility with an event card of being removed from the game. So that's Erwin Rommel. And yes, infantry attack, even more fascinating read. Yes, and Rommel was one of the generals. He actually was treated prisoners of war actually decently. You can't say the same with other generals. So we have Erich Heppner here. He's sympathizer. He has a seniority of 5, confidence of 2. For a sympathizer, it's pretty low. And you know why? He was also, I think, executed as a result of I'm almost pretty sure, the July plot. So here you have, he only appears in the scenario of 1941. That scenario, he has a combat event in any of the fronts attacking that's a plains space. And you can change one cross result for a tank result. So instead of 1 hit, it scores 2 hits, but you got to roll the crosses first. And then he has the resentful special ability. When dismissed or removed from play, you add 2 influence points to the dissidents. Notice how curious it is. He is from the sympathizers, but if he's removed, the dissidents add 2 prestige points. So that is very interesting, that effect there. Then the next one is Hermann Hoth, also known as the Goblin. And now I know why they call him the Goblin. Yeah. So he has a seniority of 5, confidence rating of 3, also a sympathizer. He appears in scenarios 1, 2, and 3. That's from 1941 onwards. And his combat ability can be on either front, attacking or defending in a plane's space. A controlling player, you can change a cross result to a tank result, which is an additional hit, one more hit than the cross result. So that's Hermann Hoth, and he commanded. I know he commanded a Panzer army in the Eastern Front. But with that 5 seniority, it's going to be pretty tough for him to get an army group position. So it's not, the lower the number is, the lower the chance. But generals can also command battles. Those generals that never get in the game an army group position, they can be assigned to command a battle. And they can earn prestige points if they win the battle there. So not everything is in the army groups. Now we have George Hans Reinhardt. 5 and 5, also a sympathizer, so he has a high rating there, confidence, and he has effects attacking and defending in any space, and you can change here any gray die for a tank result. Wow, so any result in a gray die to a tank result, that's pretty significant. So that is Reinhardt. So I'm trying to remember, see if I see Reinhardt anywhere, but I can't remember. I think he was in the Western Front somewhere. I think I saw him in Poland too. But let's continue here. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. There's a lot of generals. Then we have Eugen von Schubert, 5 and confidence of 2. Hitler doesn't like him. Old Guard. He has effects in attack and defense in any space there. You can roll a die. Gray die instead of a yellow die. So you want to make sure you have Axis satellite forces in that space, because those are the Axis satellite forces roll the yellow die. So he makes Romanians and Italians fight better. But he has the misfortune of dying in a plane crash in 1941. So that is Eugen von Schubert. Then you have the infamous Friedrich von Paulus, 5 and 4. So historically, he was designated commander of the 6th Army because von Reichenau died of a heart attack. But Hitler likes him. He has a 4, which is a pretty high confidence rating. And his special ability, he adds 1 to the Axis combat dice roll, but it's in attack. And that blue symbol means the attacker in a river sector. I said before in amphibious assault, no, river sector. And a river sector is, for example, here, you see, for example, let me show you some river over here. Here you see, for example, in Belgium and Holland, you see Antwerp is a river sector, which is in blue. Then you have the Ruhr, which is a river sector and a Festung sector. If Ruhr falls, then you add that black disc, Axis disc that was here, you place it here in the collapse of Germany. And when you fill these first 3, there's no effect. But then the 4th comes here. And then at the end of the turn, if you roll, I think lower, you can't roll lower than a 1. But I think, I don't know if you roll a 1 or less. If you roll the number of discs that are here or less, that's the end of the game, because Germany has collapsed. So we see that von Paulus has that special ability in attack on a river space, only on the Russian front. I guess that is for all the rivers that were in the south in Russia during the Fall Blau campaign, taken into consideration that. And then he was captured in 1943, so he has that misfortune of being captured. Next, Rudolph Schmid, 5 in seniority 2 confidence, so he's a dissident at the beginning of the game. Special ability in attack and defense in any space, but it's in the Russian front, cancels a star result in an Allied combat role. So star results is usually a hit for the Soviets on the Axis forces. But he has a misfortune, arrested by the Gestapo in 1943 with with a misfortune event there. Then we have, this guy's one of my favorites because he's a Luftwaffe general. Albert Kesslering. He actually commanded one of the Luftflots in the Battle of Britain. And then he ends up commanding the Italian theater, the whole Southern Front when the Italian campaign takes place. So look at his seniority is really high, 9, but he comes in 1941. So got to wait until 1941, a 9. And of course, he's a sympathizer, and Hitler likes him a lot. So he's a 6 in confidence. So he's pretty solid. And I mean, I think he lasted most of he lasted for a long time in the Italian front. Take a look at his combat. He's a defensive general here when defending in any rough terrain space. And we can see that as rough terrain spaces go here, we can see here in Italy, they're all rough terrain spaces. Rome, Naples, Messina. This is southern Italy. And then northern Italy, also rough. So it's Munich and Florence. And notice Munich is a Festung space. So it's part of Germany, but that's the German city closest there, the major city closest to that front there. So that's Kesselring, and he has a special ability. He cannot be appointed the head of an army group or activated as a leading general in a battle. So he can only be appointed to head of a front. So there's only 3 fronts. So that's curious. He's a Luftwaffe general. That makes sense after all. So that's Smiling Albert Kesselring. Now we have Walter Model, and he commanded the Army Group, was it B, 1945, when the Allied forces surrounded the Ruhr. He actually committed suicide there instead of being captured. So Model has a seniority of 5. He has a confidence of 6. So he's well situated with the Führer here. And he, of course, he's a sympathizer. So that tells you everything you need to know. And look at his special effect in defense. So in any space, he cancels a special effect in the combat card. The combat cards have a special symbol for a special effect. The special effect sometimes takes into consideration the current air power on the front. So sometimes you roll a special effect, and then if the air power, for example, in the Eastern Front is favoring the Soviets, you're going to get hit with an adverse effect there. But that only happens when a special effect comes up in the dice. And so that's Walter Model. Next one is Heinrich von Vietinghoff. And von Vietinghoff was in the Italian campaign. I remember he commanded, I think, the army groups there. I'm looking for the maps here, the Italian campaign. See if I can find them. They're back here. But you can see he has a 5 and a 4, a 5 in seniority, a 4 in the sense of confidence. And let's take a look at the map here. So you can see him here. Von Vietinghoff is that general here. Actually, the army group commander, well, Southwest, is commanding, I guess, the front here, well, the whole, which is equivalent to the army group. And then you have the 10th Army was commanded by von Vietinghoff, but I think he later became commander of the whole thing. You see here, Kesselring was relieved by Vietinghoff here. So that's von Vietinghoff. And he has also a defensive ability. He adds 1 white die roll to the Axis combat roll. So it's an extra die. It's a white die, but I mean, sometimes you can get a hit with a white die, which are better than even the yellow dice. So let's go to the next card, Werner Kempf, 5, seniority 2, confidence, pretty low. Combat effects only on the Eastern Front and attack and defense there. You can see that you roll 1 gray die instead of a white die. So that's his combat effect. Next we have here Gotthard Heinrich, 1941. I think I remember him commanding army groups, but like in the late 1944, Latvia, something like that, in the Eastern Front. That's what I think. Or I think I remember seeing him in command of an army group. So, yeah, I'm not going to look him up right now, but you can see here his effect is in defense only in the Eastern Front. You can re-roll up to 2 dice of the Axis combat roll, and the controlling player then may choose the original or the new result. So that's pretty powerful. And he has a confidence of 5, so has a nice chance of surviving one confidence die roll at least. Rudolph, I don't remember this guy at all. Confidence only 2, seniority 4, so it's going to be hard for him to get a command in the game. He's one of the old guard, and you see his command, his effect there is in defense in fortified spaces. There are some fortress spaces in the game, but there are not many there. So let's go to the next one. Hans von Salmuth. Von Salmuth commanded, I think it was an army, I think it was the army that was in Holland defending in 1944, the D-Day invasion. You know, he was commanding that area there. So you see there he has a seniority of 4. It's going to be tough for him to gain an army group position. And a confidence of 3, which is pretty high for a professional soldier here, a professional general. And he defends in rough terrain in any of the front. His special ability subtracts 1 hit. So that's von Salmuth there. And we have George Lindemann, 4 and 4, sympathizer. And he has a special combat ability when attacking in a river space or defending in any other space. You can change a blank result, which is nothing, for a cross, which is 1 hit. And Hans-Jürgen von Arnim. And von Arnim replaced, I think, Rommel as commander of the Africa Corps in North Africa. So this was the general who commanded the Africa Corps after Rommel was, after Battle of Alamein or something like that. So he's of the old guard. He has a 4 in seniority, 3 confidence. And you see that his ability is in attack or defense, but only against the Western allies. He adds a hit to the combat die roll, Axis combat die roll for every tank result. It's an extra hit. Now he has a misfortune of being captured in North Africa, 1943. That's von Arnim. Then we have Eberhard von Mackensen. I wonder if this guy is related to the von Mackensen, the general in World War I that commanded the German troops around Romania. So he's from the old guard, 4 seniority, 3 confidence, and his special combat ability can be in either front, but it's on defense. He cancels a tank result, and those are the ones that produce 2 hits. And during certain years on the Western and Eastern fronts, the Soviets get better during the games, and the meanings of the results can also change accordingly. And then we have Joachim Lemmelsen. And Lemmelsen is from the old guard, 4 in seniority. It's going to be tough for him to gain an army group command. 4 in confidence, which is pretty high for an old guard confidence rating. And then you see his effect is only in defense in any space. You can roll a gray die instead of a white die in an Axis combat roll. And then we have Walter Weiss, 1941. He enters, we're still 1941, a 4 seniority, 4 confidence. He's a professional of the professional group, influence group. In combat, it's only in defending in rough spaces in the Soviet Union. You can re-roll 1 die and you can choose the original or the new result. And then Lothar Rendulic. And Rendulic is a sympathizer. He has a 3 in seniority. This guy is probably never going to command an army group. But I think he did, like at the end, like in 1945 in the Eastern Front. He won because there was, after the destruction of Army Group Center, there was a swift change every month or 2 of commanders there. So I think he's one of those there in the Eastern Front in 1945. So let me see if I can pull out quickly that map there, because we're seeing more and more games of those there. Those games like at the end of the war with the Soviets attacking. So we have here, for example, this is the Summer Offensive 1944. We have Reinhardt, which we saw later, we saw before. So let me see, I know Von Rendulic is somewhere around here. Here he is. Rendulic commands Army Group Center, which is just cornered in the north of East Prussia here, against the Baltic Sea there. So he got to command, actually, an army group. And you see he's a defensive general, can change a cross result with a gun result. And I forget what the gun result does, so I would have to check here. 2 hits if the axis is the defender and the assault gun project has been completed. That's what otherwise it's 1 hit. So you have to complete the assault gun project, which is production, we're just looking at the generals today here. We've been out for an hour with the generals. Production is another set of cards. You have to complete the assault guns, and in defense it is 2 hits. So that's the effect there. That's Rendulic. Next we have Joseph Harp. 3 seniority, very low. 4 confidence, professional, and his effect is in any front defending in a fortified space. For each tank result, the axis die roll, you subtract 1 from the 1 hit from the Allied combat rolled. So that's Harp. Karl Adolf Hollit is another one that I think commanded very briefly forces in the Eastern Front at the end of the war. 3 seniority, 3 confidence. See him here. Also abilities in defense only in the Eastern Front. You roll a gray die instead of a yellow die. Yellow dice are the ones that the satellites roll. They got to have a satellite army in the defense, and by 1944-45, there's not many around. Then you have Leo Geir von Schweppenberg. This one is one that I couldn't even recall. 3 seniority, 2 confidence, old guard general, by the symbol, cross there. He has in attack and defense in any space in the Western Front. You can cancel the die that added the Western roll. What's this? Added to the Western die roll when the air and naval control value in the front is 1. Okay, if air and naval control falls to 1, and that is a very specific situation here. For example, here you see when air and naval control drops to 1, the Allies roll an extra die in any combat situation in that southern front. So you don't want this to drop to 1 because the Allies are going to be adding an extra die. And the same thing happens here in the Eastern front. They'll be rolling an extra die too. So what he does is that he cancels that situation. So that's going to happen at the end of the war. So he may have his usefulness, right? Next we have Otto Waller, 3 and 3, professional soldier. And he has a defensive combat ability. You can re-roll a die in the Allied combat roll, and the new result must be applied. So you can't choose between results there. And we have Erwin Janicke. And he was still in 1942, 3 and 2. So very hardly he's going to command an army group. And his ability in combat is in defense there. You can re-roll 1 die to the Axis combat roll. That is a blank result. And the new result must be applied. So that can be done in the Eastern and Western front. So you can place him in any front. Then you have Hans Valentin Huber. This is a pretty famous, I believe, Panzer commander. You remember Huber's Pocket. There's games about that. So he he retrieved some panzer units from encirclement. So you can see here, he is a sympathizer, 3 and 3. He has a seniority of 3, confidence 3, and he has a combat ability only in defense, but in any front. He adds 1 hit to the Axis combat roll for every Allied and or Soviet tank result. So an Allied and a Soviet tank result inflicts 2 hits at certain times during the war. And otherwise, I think it's just 1. But if the Allies roll that favorable result, then he adds 1 hit to the Allies or the Soviets in combat. But he has a misfortune in 1943 that he dies in a plane crash. If he gets that misfortune result and he's around. Then you have Christian Hansen, 3 and 4. So 3, very hard to get an army group position. He defends well in rivers in the Eastern Front. He subtracts 1 die from the Allied combat roll. So if the Allies roll 3 dice, they roll 2. And he dies in 1944 of poor health if the misfortune event happens and he is in command of an army group. Then we have Maximilian de Angelis, 3 in, this is seniority 4 in confidence with Hitler. He's a sympathizer. His effect is in defense in the Eastern Front. If the Axis combat roll includes a gray cross result, gray is the regular army cross result, then you can cancel a Soviet star result, which is usually a hit. Then here we have Ferdinand Schorner. And Schorner, I think he just saw him around here. He is here. I have him here. This is the map of the Russian winter offensive in 1945. He even had Himmler commanding an army group there. And these are more like army groups in paper. You have Schorner here in command around Dresden there. So he is also, his benefit is only in defense. He's not going to be sacked. Very difficult. He has a 6 confidence rating. His ability is in defense there in the Soviet front. So you can change, what is that, a cross in a gray die or a blank and a white die for a gun or a white die cross in the Axis combat rolls. There's going to be a lot of white dice at the end because the Axis armies are going to be attritioned very badly. And that, remember, it goes from Panzer Army down, it goes down Panzer Army, regular army, reduced army, which are the white dice. And then we have Erhard Raus, 1943, 3 and a 3. So, and I think I also saw Raus around here somewhere in the Eastern Front. Yeah. Because there's just like sacking going on at all times. You're going to have a lot of Eastern Front generals in army groups. His ability is in defense also in the Eastern Front. You have the number of Allied hits rounding down. That's interesting. So Soviets scored 4 hits. It's 2. They scored 3. Now you reduce it to 2 also. And then you apply 1 extra reduction to 1 army in the area. So I think it's referring there, an extra reduction has to be to one of our armies. There's no pieces for Allied armies. So it comes at a cost, right? At a reduction of 1 army, you get to half the results of Soviet hits. Interesting. Then we have Kurt Student. He was the another Luftwaffe commander, well, actually of the paratroopers, Fallschirmjäger, and he has a 3 in seniority. He's an ardent Nazi. He has a 5 in the confidence rating. And his combat ability is only against the Western Allies. But notice he starts in 1943. That's way past the Crete, assault. So he has a chance of being appointed there, but it's going to be very, very low. With a 3, you're going to more likely see him being used in a particular battle. And he has the ability in combat, in defense against the Western Allies, of rolling a black die instead of a gray die in an Axis combat roll. That's Kurt Student there. Then you have Hasso von Manteuffel, and he is a pretty well-known Panzer commander. Manteuffel, I think he was in the Western Front also. And you see him here. He has a confidence of 5, which is pretty decent. So he has a good chance of surviving a scenario where he loses a battle and he's going to be questioned. And his abilities are in attack and in defense, so he's pretty well-rounded and in any of the fronts. And the controlling player, you can change a result in 1 black or gray die to a tank result, which is usually 2 hits. But you have to have a panzer army or a regular army. So it doesn't apply with satellites or reduced armies. So that's Hasso von Manteuffel. And then we have Paul Hauser. And he has a 2 seniority. So good luck finding an army group for him to command. Maybe Norway, something like that. And then it has a 4 confidence. His combat effect is only an attack, but in any space, any terrain, you roll a black die instead of 1 gray die. That's Paul Hauser. And then we have here, now we're 1943 generals. Kurt von Tippelskirch, never heard of this guy myself, has a 2 seniority, so never going to get an army group command. Has a 4 confidence rating, which is pretty high for an old guarder, and then his combat abilities in defense in any front. You can re-roll a die when an event, either a gray event or a white event, comes up, and that's interesting because sometimes you don't want the event to happen. Sometimes they're not good. So the new result must be applied. So that's an interesting particular combat effect there. Next we have Friedrich Hosbach. Friedrich Hosbach has a 2 and a 2. Man, that's the lowest of the lowest. And he's also in the Old Guard. And I don't remember this guy at all in the book. So his combat effect is in defense in any of the fronts. You can change cross result in a white or gray die for an artillery, which we saw that if on defense and if there's an artillery result and the assault gun card has come up, then it's 2 hits on defense. So all that has to happen. So that's Hosbach. And then we have Friedrich Schulz, 2 seniority, 4 confidence, sympathizer with an effect on defense in both fronts. You can re-roll a white die in an Axis combat roll, and the new result must be applied. So that's that. And Joseph Dietrich, this is actually an SS general. So he has a 2 in seniority, way down the totem pole. And a 4 in confidence, of course, he's from the SS. And his combat effect is in attack against the Western Allies and the Soviets in any particular hex. And his effect, when the Axis combat includes at least a black die, he adds 1 hit. It has to include a black die. That means that there has to be a panzer army in the space. So those are rare at the end of the war to maintain. They're going to get hits, and you reduce them from black to gray, from panzer to regular army. And that's the last one. Yes, I think we reached the last one of the generals of the other side of the hill. So I counted 54 slides, but I had this slide and a blank, so I think I have 52 now. I don't think I have. Maybe I haven't, but I don't know. There's going to be an expansion included with the Kickstarter, the Twilight Generals. Maybe those that I never heard of are the Twilight Generals that, and I have them there, and those are the ones. I think there's about 10 to 16 more generals that will be included with the expansion. So those are the generals on the other side of the hill, and that's all she wrote for now. I think we've been on this for some time. I don't see how long here. Let me see if I can see. We've been on here for 1 hour and 23 minutes, and I'm not seeing the YouTube page. Let me see if I see it here. Still have 18 viewers. You guys you're that's me, okay. Let me see. Do we have to? Oh, here. Okay, you got. Wait a second. I had to catch up on the. Why don't the comments show up? I gotta fix the comments here for some reason. Let me see where we have Eric likes it. We have John. Well, yeah, I think we went through these. Let me see where is the. Yeah, these are old comments. Let me see, where were we here? Was the sun. Okay. So Eberhard von Maximilan, yeah, that explains it. I mean, why he got the position. Yeah. Weppenburg commanded a panzer army in Normandy. Thanks, Mike, for that. And we have Alan Salazar was able to catch the show live. It's all right, Alan. I almost don't make the show. Completely unannounced. Well, it includes, I think, it includes 1 or 2 SS generals. I mean, historically, it includes generals that it includes generals that had a chance of being army group commanders. There's a ton of army commanders, especially after 1942, when the German reorganization, they diluted the strength of the divisions to make up more divisions, and they had a lot of armies, more armies. So you watch the start. Sure, that's why I wanted to keep it to an hour. So, and E4 Airman, always here, and he's there. So I want to thank all of you for staying up and keeping up with this. This is the other side of the hill. This is, the generals is just a part of the game. We haven't seen the production cards. Maybe I can show you in another one the production cards, the operation cards, which are really nice. I think they should deserve a showing, because you have the operations that happen historically, and you have the ones that could have happened. You have Sea Lion 1, Sea Lion 2. You have the invasion of Spain. You have another invasion of Spain to try to take Gibraltar. You have all these operations that could have happened. The assault on Malta. So how all this happens. This is game, as I told you before, the only part of this game that is scripted is that Germany is going to lose the war. But you don't know when. And if you're playing the solo game, you're trying to delay it. But if you're playing the competitive game with 4 players, you want to delay it if you are the OKW player. But if you are the dissident player, you want to end it pretty soon. So it has all these objectives, all these ways of scoring points, and all these alternative history events also baked in, which I find fascinating. So I hope to play this game in the Bellota-Con. They're going to have some copies over there. And I hope to make a video. I'm planning on doing a video of a full turn in 1943. And I'm going to use sequence of play cards that I've almost finished, because I think they could help the game, because the game has 30-something phases. Now, the game has a nice aid here on the board that tells you what phase you're in. See, in the administrative phase, you have all of these particular segments, and it tells you who is the player that runs the segment. So you have these, for example, here, the satellite replacements are by the operations chief, but then the production table is adjusted by the production chief. So you have these roles by each of the players who are controlling the positions within the OKW, and they change every year. You can be OKW 1 year, production chief, the other year, operations chief. So it's a really, really interesting design. And I interviewed Carlos Marquez, and I told him, Carlos, I think you've hit something here, because when you have Churchill by Mark Herman, which shows you the inner workings of an alliance, right? Of an alliance, the allies, and the struggles between them and all that. But this is the inner workings of one particular country during the war. So you have all these, you have also diplomacy cards. Which countries do you want to attack? What benefits do you have? You can, in this game, you can conquer Spain. You can attack Turkey if you want. And so you have all these possibilities, and you're focusing the game by the prism of the German High Command. And it's going to be a chaotic game. Carlos Marquez told me the reason why players would change every year roles, like OKW players changes to production, is because the German High Command didn't have really like a straight path to victory. It was very chaotic, especially after 1942, when Hitler took command of the army. It was very chaotic. So you're going to see that in this game, in that particular mechanic. So there's also the possibility of making games that will show you the Russian High Command, the Japanese High Command. Why not a game about Hitler, about Napoleon's marshals, and why Napoleon would assign a particular marshal? In the Civil War, you can have the North and the South. You are conducting the war and assigning generals and trying to put your generals there also. So these are new ways of focusing on a particular war and a conflict, and it's always very refreshing to see that. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in. Thank you. And you're still there in Canada. Well, Puerto Rico's nice here. It's probably 75 degrees Fahrenheit out there. So need air conditioning. So as I always say, thanks for tuning in. And this is Stuka Joe signing off for now. Thanks for watching.